Hey everyone, Trev. History didn't change because of genius. It changed because someone made a ridiculous mistake at the worst possible time.
History isn't written by the winners. It's written by people who didn't read the instructions first. 1. Napoleon's rabbit disaster, 1807. You'd think one of the greatest military strategists in history could handle rabbits. After a victorious campaign, Napoleon Bonaparte decided to celebrate with a grand hunting event. Thousands of rabbits were released for him and his generals to hunt. Only problem? The event organizer accidentally bought tame farm rabbits instead of wild ones. So instead of running away, the bunnies charged toward Napoleon's troops like a fluffy stampede. Hundreds of rabbits swarmed the emperor, climbed his legs, and invaded his carriage. It was less Battle of Austerlitz and more attack of the cuddly horde. Napoleon fled in humiliation, chased by an army of soft, adorable vengeance. And that, my friends, is how a French emperor was defeated by dinner. 2. The Lost Bag of the NASA Astronaut, 1965. During a 1965 spacewalk, astronaut Edward White became the first American to float freely in space. It was supposed to be a triumph of human achievement until he accidentally let go of his toolkit. The bag of wrenches drifted away, orbiting Earth at 17,000 miles per hour, effectively becoming humanity's first floating junk drawer. Scientists later calculated that the lost tool bag was visible from telescopes for months, proudly circling the planet like a cosmic symbol of whoops. It turns out, even in the infinite expanse of space, humans can still lose their tools like a dad at a weekend barbecue. Somewhere above us, that wrench is still out there. Humanity's most expensive case of butterfingers. 3. The Battle of Karansebes, 1788. The Austrian army once managed to lose a battle against itself. During the Austro-Turkish War, soldiers camped near the town of Karansebes got drunk after buying schnapps from local merchants. When a few soldiers tried to rejoin their camp later, a language barrier caused someone to shout, "Turks!" in panic. The troops opened fire on their own men. Chaos erupted. Cavalry charged, commanders screamed, cannons fired, and by dawn, 10,000 soldiers were dead or wounded, all without the enemy ever showing up. 2 days later, the actual Turkish army arrived to find the Austrians had already defeated in themselves. It's history's worst case of hold my beer meets friendly fire. 4. The Man Who Forgot to Invent the Wheel, 1903. When Orville Wright and Wilbur Wright made the first powered flight in 1903, it was a historic triumph, until they tried to bring the plane back to the hangar. The Wright flyer didn't have any wheels, none. The brothers had been so focused on getting the thing off the ground that they forgot to consider how it would get back. Every takeoff meant hauling a half-ton of wood and fabric onto a catapult rail by hand, while the landing was basically controlled crashing into a sand dune. They'd created the future of flight, but couldn't taxi it 10 feet without 3 guys and a rope. It's the ultimate proof that sometimes you can invent something world-changing and still forget the part that makes it practical. The Wright brothers taught humanity how to soar, and also how to sprain your back doing it. 5. The Olympic marathon that nearly killed everyone. The 1904 St. Louis Olympics were a masterclass in poor planning. The marathon began in 90-degree heat on dusty roads used by horse-drawn carriages. Only one water station existed, 9 miles in, because organizers wanted to test the effects of dehydration. The spoiler, the effect was death-adjacent. One runner was chased off the course by wild dogs. Another stole a car to finish faster, but was disqualified when the dust on his face didn't match his legs. The winner, Thomas Hicks, was carried across the finish line hallucinating after being fed a mix of raw egg whites, brandy, and strychnine, literal rat poison. He won gold and nearly died immediately after. The event was so disastrous that it inspired modern hydration rules, proving once and for all that science sometimes advances because someone almost kills an Olympian with cocktail poison. 6. The Spy Who Mailed Himself to Prison, 1960s. During the Cold War, a British prisoner named Brian Robson came up with a genius escape plan by mail. He convinced 2 friends to literally ship him out of his Australian prison camp in a wooden crate labeled photographic equipment. The journey was supposed to last 36 hours. Instead, thanks to flight delays, he spent nearly 5 days upside down in darkness, freezing, dehydrated, and occasionally flipped onto his head. His package was accidentally rerouted through Los Angeles, where airport workers heard noises coming from a box and opened it to find a half-dead man blinking at fluorescent lights. The FBI thought he was a spy. The Australian government called it creative. He called it never doing that again. It remains one of the dumbest yet most determined jailbreaks ever. The only man to successfully deliver himself to freedom via postal service. 7. The day Sweden forgot. Which side to drive on? 1967. On September 3, 1967, Sweden decided to switch from driving on the left side of the road to the right in one morning. No gradual rollout, no pilot cities, just a full-scale good luck everyone. Overnight, road signs flipped, intersections repainted, and millions of drivers were told, "Remember, today it's opposite." At 5 a.m., police blew whistles nationwide, and chaos instantly erupted. Cars swerved, buses collided, and pedestrians panicked like extras in a disaster film. Amazingly, there were fewer fatalities that day, probably because everyone was driving at 2 miles per hour in sheer terror. The event is now called Dagen H or H-Day, short for Högertrafikomläggningen, which is Swedish for mass confusion with government approval. Sweden eventually got used to it, but for one glorious morning, the entire country collectively asked, "Wait, whose bright idea was this again?" 8. The NASA metric mix-up, 1999. In 1999, NASA lost a $327 million Mars probe because one team used metric units and the other used imperial. The Jet Propulsion Laboratory calculated thrust in newtons. The contractor entered pounds. The result? The Mars Climate Orbiter hit the atmosphere too low, disintegrated, and burned up before scientists could say unit conversion. It was a cosmic version of forgetting to carry the one. The official report read like an apology note from a high school physics class. Failure to use consistent units. Translation: someone forgot there are 2 kinds of inches in the universe. Taxpayers funded the most expensive math error in history, one so stupid it became a cautionary tale in engineering schools worldwide. Somewhere out there, Mars is still littered with the ashes of a $300 million reminder that Americans really, really hate the metric system. 9. The day the United States Air Force lost a nuclear bomb, 1958. Imagine losing your car keys. Now imagine they weigh 7,600 pounds and contain a nuclear warhead. In 1958, a U.S. Air Force bomber collided mid-air with another plane over South Carolina. To avoid exploding on impact, the crew dropped its nuclear bomb, yes, dropped it, into a quiet suburban area near the town of Mars Bluff. The bomb didn't detonate, luckily, but the conventional explosives inside blew a 35-foot crater in someone's backyard, flattening their house and turning their garden into a government excavation site. For decades, the military searched but never found the nuclear core. It's still buried somewhere under South Carolina soil, a ticking relic of Cold War chaos. Locals even built a tourist sign, the bomb that fell on Mars Bluff. Only in America do we turn near apocalypses into roadside attractions. 10. The explosion that made Texas City glow, 1947. In 1947, a French cargo ship called Grand Camp docked in Texas City, carrying 2,300 tons of ammonium nitrate fertilizer, the same chemical later used in multiple infamous explosions. When a dock worker lit a cigarette nearby, the ship detonated with the force of 20,000 tons of TNT. Windows shattered 40 miles away, and the blast registered as one of the largest non-nuclear explosions in history. The entire harbor vaporized. It even launched a 2-ton anchor nearly 2 miles inland, which locals proudly display to this day. The disaster killed nearly 600 people and leveled the town, but somehow inspired a new safety codes for storing hazardous materials. So technically, the fertilizer did grow something. It just happened to be a mushroom cloud. 11. The bridge that walked itself apart, 1940. The Tacoma Narrows Bridge was supposed to be an engineering marvel, a sleek modern suspension bridge nicknamed Galloping Gertie for how gracefully it bounced in the wind. Unfortunately, it turned out to bounce a little too well. In November 1940, strong winds turned Gertie into a gigantic metal ribbon, twisting and flapping like a rubber band in a hurricane. Drivers abandoned their cars as the bridge literally danced itself to death, collapsing into Puget Sound in one of the most dramatic engineering failures ever filmed. The footage still plays in physics classes as the world's most expensive wind experiment. On the bright side, nobody died, except one very unlucky Cocker Spaniel left in a car. Lesson learned: if your bridge moves like a yoga instructor, it's probably not safe for traffic. 12. The day Canada accidentally invaded itself, 1972. In 1972, Canadian troops conducted a routine training exercise near the U.S. border. Unfortunately, someone forgot to tell the Border Patrol where the pretend invasion was taking place. The soldiers, armed and enthusiastic, crossed the line into the small Canadian town of Frobisher Bay, technically their own country. The locals panicked, assuming it was a real invasion. For a few tense hours, Canada was at war with Canada. No shots were fired, but a few maple syrup deliveries were definitely delayed. The incident became an internal joke in military circles, the war that started and ended with apologies. To this day, it's probably the politest military blunder in history. An entire invasion resolved with, "Oh, sorry, didn't mean to bother you, eh?" 13. The Great Boston Molasses Disaster. In 1919, Boston residents were reminded that even syrup can be deadly. A massive molasses storage tank burst in the North End, unleashing a 25-foot-high wave of sticky sugar that tore through the streets at 35 miles per hour. Buildings crumpled, horses drowned, and entire city blocks were buried under brown sludge. 21 people died, hundreds were injured, and cleanup crews spent months scraping molasses from the harbor. In summer heat, the smell lingered for decades. Locals swore you could still smell molasses every July. The cause? A company that didn't bother testing the tank for leaks. It was corporate negligence with a side of caramel glaze, proving once again that in America, even our disasters come with extra sugar. 14. The toilet that sank a submarine, 1945. The German Navy U-1206 was a state-of-the-art U-boat with one revolutionary feature, a high-pressure toilet that could be flushed at extreme depths. Unfortunately, it required a 12-step manual to operate. In April 1945, the captain himself decided to use it without following instructions. One wrong lever later, the toilet exploded, literally flooding the compartment with seawater and sewage. The flood shorted out the submarine's batteries, filling the vessel with toxic chlorine gas. The crew was forced to surface, where they were promptly spotted and bombed by British aircraft. So yes, a single bad flush helped end a German war mission. History calls it the most disastrous bathroom break ever. A fine reminder that sometimes the deadliest weapon on board is plumbing. 15. The library fire that burned knowledge. Twice, 1986. The Los Angeles Public Library is one of America's grandest temples of knowledge. But in 1986, it nearly burned to the ground. The fire raged for 7 hours, destroying 400,000 books and damaging 700,000 more. Investigators never found the arsonist, but the tragedy had a surreal twist. Just as firefighters declared victory, someone accidentally turned the building's sprinkler system back on, soaking every book that had survived. So the collection was first burned, then drowned, like literature's worst spa day. Volunteers formed human chains to pass damp books into freezers, hoping to preserve them. It worked for some. To this day, Los Angeles librarians keep one singed, warped novel on display as a reminder. Knowledge is power, but apparently not waterproof. 16. The volcano that nobody told the town about, 1980. In 1980, residents near Mount St. Helens were repeatedly assured by officials that everything was fine. Sure, the volcano was rumbling, trees were dying, and the mountain's top was bulging like a zit about to pop. But no need to panic, they said. Then, on May 18th, it erupted with the force of 500 atomic bombs. The blast flattened forests, vaporized 57 people, and sent ash all the way to Oklahoma. The most tragic part? A local lodge owner named Harry R. Truman refused to evacuate because he'd lived there all his life. The mountain promptly buried him under 150 feet of volcanic rock. Government agencies now use St. Helens as a training case in how not to underestimate angry geology. Basically, if the mountain starts expanding like a microwaved burrito, maybe it's time to move. The time London poisoned itself. With gin, 1858. Picture this, 19th century London, where gin was cheaper than water and probably safer. But in 1858, bootleggers decided to cut costs by mixing their gin with industrial methanol, wood alcohol, the kind used for cleaning paintbrushes. Within days, 21 people dropped dead, and hundreds more went blind or insane. The incident became known as the poisoned gin panic, which honestly sounds like a punk band name. The worst part? Nobody stopped drinking it. The next week, sales increased because the survivors figured lightning wouldn't strike twice. British newspapers at the time described the event as a sobering reminder, literally sobering. It led to the first major food safety laws in England, proving that sometimes it takes a few poisoned gin tonics to convince a government that maybe, just maybe, drinking paint thinner isn't a lifestyle choice. 18. The Great Emu War of Australia, 1932. In 1932, Australia declared war, not on a country, but on birds. After World War I, soldiers returning home tried farming in Western Australia, only to find their crops under siege by 20,000 emus, giant, flightless birds with the attitude of delinquent velociraptors. The government sent actual soldiers armed with machine guns. What followed was a farcical 2-week campaign where the birds won. The emus outran trucks, dodged bullets, and regrouped like feathery guerrilla fighters. After 10,000 rounds of ammunition, the military killed maybe a few hundred birds. The rest strutted away victorious. Parliament eventually surrendered, deciding the solution was to build better fences. The emus remain undefeated to this day, living proof that Mother Nature doesn't care how big your gun is if your target can sprint 30 miles per hour. 19. The astronomer who invented a planet by accident, 1930s. For decades, scientists believed there had to be a mysterious Planet X beyond Neptune. So when Percival Lowell's observatory found odd blips in space, they triumphantly declared the discovery of a new planet, Pluto. For 76 years, schoolchildren learned its name, until astronomers realized the planet was basically a glorified ice pebble. In 2006, they officially demoted Pluto to dwarf planet status, devastating millions who'd memorized the mnemonic, "My very educated mother just served us 9 pizzas." Suddenly, Mom stopped serving pizza altogether. The best part? Lowell's telescope data was later found to be wrong. The object he discovered wasn't Pluto at all. He literally invented a planet by mistake, and humanity rolled with it for 3/4 of a century. Proof that sometimes the universe lets you be wrong. Spectacularly. 20. The CIA's cat spy catastrophe, 1960s. During the Cold War, the CIA spent $20 million on a secret mission called Acoustic Kitty. The plan? Implant microphones, batteries, and antennas into cats so they could eavesdrop on Soviet conversations. Yes, this actually happened. The first spy cat was released near a park bench where 2 officials were talking. It made it about 3 feet before being hit by a taxi. Mission over. According to declassified documents, the project was canceled due to environmental factors. Translation: the environment contained cars. The poor cat's sacrifice at least taught the agency one crucial lesson. If your spy requires kibble and naps every 20 minutes, maybe it's time to rethink your espionage strategy. 21. The lighthouse that fired back, 1801. In 1801, British warships bombarded a French-held island off the coast of Brittany, targeting what they thought was an enemy fortress. For hours, they pounded it with cannon fire, until they realized their fort was actually the Cordovan lighthouse. A lighthouse. The bewildered keeper, tired of being shelled, reportedly fired a small cannon back in protest. His defiance became legendary, the only known case of a lighthouse returning fire. When the British realized their mistake, they apologized and offered to repair the damage, which is possibly the politest end to a naval bombardment in history. Today, the Cordovan lighthouse still stands, proudly illuminating ships that can hopefully now tell the difference between a building that saves sailors and one that shoots back. 22. The train that forgot the brakes, 1895. In 1895, Paris was treated to one of the most unintentionally spectacular stunts in history. The Granville-Paris Express, running slightly behind schedule, decided to make up time the hard way by not stopping. The engineer misjudged his braking distance, and the locomotive plowed straight through the Gare Montparnasse, smashed through a wall, and shot out the second story like it was auditioning for a Fast and Furious prequel. The train hung nose first over the street below, steam hissing dramatically while Parisians gawked. Miraculously, the only fatality was a woman on the street who got hit by falling debris, proving gravity is undefeated. The photo of the dangling locomotive became one of the most famous images of the 19th century. It's still used today as the universal picture for when you had one job. 23. The Great Pigeon Air Force of World War II. Before satellites and Wi-Fi, war communications relied on birds. Homing pigeons carried messages through battlefields, dodging bullets and explosions with surprising success. One pigeon named Cher Ami even received a medal for delivering a life-saving message despite being shot through the chest, blinded in one eye, and flying 25 miles in 25 minutes. But not every feathered hero soared. In World War II, the British tried training pigeons to guide bombs toward enemy ships, literally strapping birds into miniature cockpits to peck at targets on a screen. The project, led by psychologist B.F. Skinner, was called Project Pigeon. It technically worked, but military brass refused to fund guided missiles with feathers. The program was canceled, replaced by actual electronics. Still, it proved something timeless. When humanity runs out of good ideas, it immediately asks, what if we just put a bird in charge? 24. The United States Army Corps of Engineers Dead Whale Catapult, 1970. In 1970, Oregon officials faced a unique civic challenge. A dead 8-ton whale rotting on the beach near Florence. Burying it seemed hard, burning it seemed messy. So someone decided the best option was to blow it up. The plan was to vaporize the carcass with dynamite and let seagulls handle the rest. What actually happened was an educational film in ballistic failure. The explosion launched massive chunks of whale blubber hundreds of feet into the air, flattening cars, shattering windows, and traumatizing bystanders. One piece the size of a sofa crushed a Buick a quarter-mile away. News crews captured everything, and the footage went viral decades before the internet existed. The headline could have read, "Government solves problem by creating new, wetter problem." Today, Oregon uses bulldozers, a quiet victory for common sense. 25. The Emperor who declared war on the sky, 1769. In 1769, Russian Emperor Peter III of Russia became convinced that thunder was a personal insult. One afternoon, when a storm interrupted his parade, he ordered his army to open fire on the clouds. For hours, cannons roared skyward as rain drenched his troops. The result? The sky remained undefeated, the cannons got waterlogged, and Peter earned the nickname, the man who declared war on weather. Even his generals couldn't take it seriously. One wrote in his journal, "His Majesty has conquered the morale of his men, if not the heavens." It's a timeless tale of leadership gone full meteorology. The lesson? When you start treating the atmosphere like an enemy, it's probably time to resign or get a hobby, preferably one that doesn't involve artillery or clouds. 26. The dishwasher that sank a Navy ship, 1959. In 1959, the USS William D. Porter met its end not in combat, but in a laundry room. The destroyer had already earned a reputation as the unluckiest ship in the U.S. Navy. It once accidentally fired a live torpedo at Franklin D. Roosevelt's battleship during World War II. Miraculously, that torpedo missed. Years later, while docked in Alaska, someone installed an industrial dishwasher in the mess hall. The new addition overloaded the electrical system, sparked a fire, and set off the ship's ammunition storage. The resulting explosion sank the vessel, all because sailors wanted cleaner plates. Official reports blamed electrical malfunction, but crew members knew the truth. The Porter didn't die a hero's death. It died doing the dishes. Even the ocean must have rolled its eyes. 27. The town that accidentally nuked itself, 1958. Welcome to Mars Bluff. Again, because apparently one nuclear accident wasn't enough. In 1958, a U.S. Air Force B-47 bomber accidentally dropped an atomic bomb on the town while flying to England. Thankfully, the nuclear core wasn't armed, but the conventional explosives detonated, leveling a farmhouse and carving a 75-foot crater into the ground. The pilot's defense? He bumped the release switch. The U.S. government paid the victims a modest settlement, just $44,000 for accidental atomic inconvenience. The site is now a park, complete with a cheerful sign that reads, "Home of the Atomic Bomb Crater." Only in America do we commemorate our near miss with nuclear disaster using picnic benches and a historical plaque. It's the ultimate tourist spot for people who love history and irony. History isn't a story of genius, it's a blooper reel with better costumes. From exploding whales to bird-guided bombs, humans have never met a bad idea they couldn't make louder. So tell me, which historical disaster deserves a gold medal for stupidity? Comment your favorite meltdown below, and remember, the The past may be gone, but our ability to mess things up is eternal.